Started, guys. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody?
All right.
Are we ready to fight?
Yeah.
Are we ready to win?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Melanie Campbell. I am the president and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. And I'm here with my co-convener,
Janice Mathis, National Council of Negro Women.
So thank you, NCNW, for, first of all, Janice, thank you for your leadership. And of course, thank you to Dr. Janetta Cole, who's the chair and president of National Council of Negro Women. We lift her up, for her birthday was yesterday, and also just to lift her up as she is continuing to recover. We're here today for the 4th Black Women and Allies Call to Action with our Black women, our sisters and brothers, our allies representing organizations nationwide who are here and also watching out there to demand our congressional leaders pass federal voting rights protections now and pass robust infrastructure legislation that invests in the needs of working people in this country. I'm going to ask Reverend Leslie Copeland-Toon, Chief Operating Officer of the National Council of Negro Women, National Council of Churches. I got women on the mind, who will bring us an invocation and bring her remarks. She is another one of our partners for Black Women and Allies. Take action.
Amen. Thank you so much. In my tradition, we would say, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I am grateful to be standing before you again. It feels a little bit like deja vu all over again. We were just here a few months ago fighting and calling for voting rights, fighting and calling for God's people to be able to have their right to vote protected just a few months ago. Today is my mother's birthday. It's a milestone birthday. And as we look to celebrate her on this day, I can't help but think about the fact that years ago, she was sitting in at lunch counters in Columbia, South Carolina, doing exactly what we're doing right now. Lord, have mercy on us. But my mother knew the importance of making sure that we have a vote and a voice. And because of her, I am. Because of her and the thousands who have marched and bled and died, we all are. So we cannot stop, we won't stop until we make sure that voting rights is secured and our democracy is protected for all people. So on this day, I call on the Senate to end the filibuster. I can't imagine what they're thinking, what it says that the filibuster, which has been used as racial discrimination against people throughout its history, would still be protected and our voting rights not be. We call on the Senate to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. We call on the Senate to do it now. In fact, even though we are really late in making sure this is happening, the time is now, and it is long overdue. Voting rights equals economic justice, which equals racial justice, which equals gender justice, which equals justice for each and every one of us. So now let us just go before God and pray, because I believe that prayer changes things. I believe that we can not only call down the heavens, but we can call down the heavens and call on the Senate to pass voting rights now. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, our Creator, we thank you for this opportunity to lift up our voices for justice for all. We know, oh God, that you are a God of justice. We know that you can turn stony hearts to flesh. And so we ask that you would even move right now on the Senate, that you would move right now on Joe Manchin and on Kirsten Sinema and on anybody else who might block this legislation that will signal, not just in our country, but to the entire world, that this country, America, is who we say we are, that we are a democracy and that we stand for justice for all, regardless of their economic status, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender. God, we ask that you move right now and be with us in this moment, that our voices will be heard, and not just heard, but that they would pierce through hearts of stone and turn them into flesh, that we might see this legislation pass, that your people might have justice. We ask this in your name, and we pray believing that it will be so, and it shall come to pass. Amen.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Voting rights win.
No.
Voting rights win.
No.
And two of some bad sisters we have been blessed to join us today, who are fighting the fight over there and over there, and when they have to go over to their colleagues on the other side to move justice and opportunity for African Americans, for people of color, for all people in this nation. So we will have congressional remarks by Congresswoman Terry Sewell from the great state of Alabama, District 7, who serves as Chief Deputy Whip, 117th Congress, co-chairs Voting Rights Task Force for the Congressional Black Caucus, and many, many other hats that she wears. And then following her, we will hear from Congress, and they're on a tight schedule, so we're going to move fast. Congresswoman Alma Adams, PhD, Dr. Adams, North Carolina 12, Chairwoman Committee on Education and Labor Subcommittee on Workforce Protection, and Vice Chair Committee on Agriculture, and many other leadership hats that they both wear. So Congressman Sewell, and then we'll hear from Congresswoman Adams. Voting rights equals what? Voting rights equals what?
Well, thank you so much, Melanie. I want to thank you for your consistent, steadfast support and galvanizing and mobilizing us. You know, I just cannot help but look across this amazing spot. We're in front of the Supreme Court.
All right.
We're facing the Capitol, where the House and the Senate meet. Now more than ever, we need to galvanize, mobilize, and demand that we pass the Freedom to Vote Act. It's on the ballot today.
Yeah.
It's on the floor of the Senate today.
Yeah.
And so I want to say, what do we want? Voting rights. And when do we want it? Now. What do we want? Voting rights. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Voting rights.
When do we want it?
Now.
I have the great honor each and every day of representing my home district. That's a district that includes Birmingham, Montgomery, and my hometown of Selma, Alabama.
Yeah.
I stand on the shoulders, we stand on the shoulders of our four mothers like Amelia Boynton Robinson, Rosa Parks, and so many known and unknown African-American women who have made our existence possible. Now it is our turn to take that baton and take it to the next level. And the only way we can do that is demanding voting rights. Our very democracy is at stake. Our very democracy is at stake. We need federal oversight. As the lead sponsor of H.R. 4, which did pass the House of Representatives, thank you very much, the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act passed the House of Representatives on August 24th. It was introduced as S4 by Senator Leahy and Senator Warnock. And we need to make sure that we fully restore the protections of the Voting Rights Act, which was gutted by the Shelby versus Holder decision. We're telling the Supreme Court that we want our voting rights. We're telling our Senate that we want our voting rights. And we're letting it known that our democracy depends on our voting rights.
Yes.
So when I tell you that it is something that is fundamental to who we are as a democracy, if I told you that 400 pieces of legislation were introduced across this nation by state legislatures trying to roll back our voting rights, trying to give voter suppression a voice, we, the American people, must demand that we have access to the ballot box. Not just some of us, but all of us. And the only way that we can do that right now, we can by the Senate voting for the Freedom to Vote Act. The Freedom to Vote Act would give automatic voter registration.
Yeah.
This Freedom to Vote Act would make Election Day a holiday so everybody can go vote.
Yeah.
We want access to the ballot box, and we want it now.
Yeah.
Access to the ballot box, when do we want it?
Now.
Access to the ballot box, when do we want it?
Now.
So we say to the senators, this archaic rule of filibuster has got to go.
Yeah. Filibuster.
The filibuster must what? Gotta go. And we want it to go
now.
We need those 60 votes in order to stop cloture and vote on the Freedom to Vote Act. And then we want H.R. 4, which I guess over there is called S4, brought up, and we need to make sure that federal oversight once again is restored. When states go amok, it's the federal government oversight which is delivered for civil rights, voting rights, and human rights. So I say to all of us that the time for us to act is now. I want to thank this group for being vigilant each and every day, for being steadfast in your requests, and in acknowledging that voting rights equals economic justice.
Right.
We want it, and we want it now. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak, and let us just all remember that our foremothers and our forefathers had it way worse than we did. Yeah. If they could mobilize and organize and demand change, then we can too.
Amen.
Let us be renewed, let us be recommitted and rededicated to the struggle. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
When do we want our rights? We want them now. Thank you so much to Terry Sewell, Congresswoman, for the great work that she's doing, and all of you in terms of our voting rights. And yes, we stand here in front of the Supreme Court. And I've got to tell you that I represent the 12th Congressional District in North Carolina. There's no more of an egregious process in state than North Carolina in terms of our voting rights. My district was redistricted. Now I've had 5 different configurations since I've been in Congress. So it is important that we make sure that we have the right people in place and that we have the right laws in place, and that we've got to put some pressure on the Senate. And I'm so glad that you're out here today, but let me just talk a minute about this economic justice and what we need. I'll tell you who votes too. Young people, students vote. I am a former 40-year college professor in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm a graduate twice of North Carolina A&T State University and HBCU, Aggie Pride. And we have marched and we have worked to make sure that our young people vote, because somebody's going to make a decision for and about you, most times without you. So you've either got to do one or two things. You've got to run for office and serve as we're serving from the inside out, or you're going to have to be able to control those of us who make those decisions on your behalf. And that's why we're here today, to control the Senate, to say to them, we need you to pass these bills. We don't need you to stand in the way. And you're right, filibuster must go. But let me just make a couple of comments as a former professor and someone who is working hard along with the bipartisan HBCU caucus and the Congressional Black Caucus to ensure that our HBCUs also have their day in court, and that our HBCUs will be able to not only survive but to thrive. It's been almost 200 years since our first school was started in 1837. That was Cheney University. And yet we look today and we see, in terms of what we need on our campuses, if we're going to build back better with infrastructure, we've got to build our HBCUs back better. Because our campuses right now, all of these 101 or 2 campuses, 102 across this country, there's $25 billion in deferred maintenance. And so we've done a lot with a little. But we want to continue to make sure that not only these schools survive, but that these young people who are making up so much of our economy, giving back to our economy, our graduates, but we're producing more than 47% of those STEM graduates. We've got 80% of black doctors and lawyers coming from HBCUs. So I'm here to appeal for some justice for our HBCUs, for these campuses and these colleges that are continuing to make a difference. They took this poor black girl who grew up in the ghetto of Newark, New Jersey, who walked those ghetto streets. They made a committed investment in me in North Carolina. They believed in opportunity. as W.E.B. Du Bois talked about when he said of all of the civil rights for which the world has struggled and fought for 500 years, the right to learn is undoubtedly the most fundamental. Yes. And so we're here to make sure that the Senate learns, yes, and to give them that fundamental right, and to continue to make sure that we have the rights for our students and for the faculty and all the other people who are working to make sure that we do what is absolutely necessary to, again, not only survive, but to thrive. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for giving me just this little platform to, again, reach out to make sure that these young people have what they need, that they can walk these halls as we're walking them, Representative Sewell, because, you know, one day I'm getting a little older, and so, but the Lord has blessed me. He's brought me from school board to Congress. Right. He's had me out here for 35 years, and I thank him for that. But I thank you for all of the work that you're doing. Let's keep it up. Yes. Let's make sure. When do we want justice? Now. We want it now. When do we want our voting rights? Now. We want them now. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Go to CBC now.
Okay. You have to walk up steps. Walk up steps.
Oh, good. Okay.
Can we give our congresswomen, our leaders, Congresswoman Terry Sewell, Congresswoman Alma Adams, a great round of applause, and thank you for all you're doing. We are partners with you in this fight. We know also what's happening on Capitol Hill is that they're looking at these bills around Build Back Better. When do we want the Build Back Better passed? Now. And they got the infrastructure. We need that too. Yeah. So they need to pass that. They need to pass. There's 4 things they need to have happen now, plus others. But what we're focused on today is the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, with the Freedom to Vote Act, the Infrastructure Bill, and the Build Back Better Bill. Those four pieces of legislation will be transformative for this country. So that's why we're here, with Black women and allies standing together with our brothers, with our sisters, from all walks of life, to say that we demand that this U.S. Senate, who's holding things up, and that all of them come together. Everybody's watching. If they're watching the news and you feel like, tell our young people, stay the course. There's no such thing as power without a demand, last I heard, right? That we learned. And so we have to keep pushing and demanding for change. So it's my pleasure to bring on my sister Janice Mathis Esquire, Executive Director, National Council of Negro Women, who's the co-convener of the Black Women and Allies Coalition, if you will, to bring remarks. Following her, we will bring on one of our younger aspiring leaders, Acacia Newsom, Project Assistant with Black Women's Roundtable. Then following her will be Joy Cheney, Executive Director, Senior Vice President, Policy and Advocacy with the National Urban League. My sister Janice, and my Sarah, and my friend. And I will stay in a foxhole with you any and every day, because you smile, but don't get it confused. Don't get it confused.
Thank you, Melanie Campbell, my friend, my Sarah, my fellow warrior woman. When I listened to Congresswoman Alma Adams and Terry Sewell, I got a little hyped up, started feeling emotional, because I too have a story about my mother. And I think the last time I was here, I talked about the A&T grad who thought it not robbery to go get herself registered to vote in 1948, 72 years after blacks were banned from voting in South Carolina. But I don't want to go there today, because thanks to her generation, I got a pretty good education at Duke and the University of Georgia and all that. Mama said every month I sign my paycheck and I send it either to North Carolina or I send it to Oberlin for your sister. So what I want to talk to you about today is an unlikely hero of mine. White man, born in Boston, noted family, wealthy, well-to-do, became a Supreme Court justice in the Massachusetts Supreme Court. Later on was tapped to go to the United States Supreme Court, sat on this bench behind me for 29 years. And he had something very profound to say. Not simple, but profound. He said, the life of the law has not been logic. Now, that's not what they teach you. You know, they use a Socratic method and they beat all the feeling and emotion out of you, teaching you logic. But Oliver Wendell Holmes, one of the greatest justices the United States has ever seen, said, the life of the law has not been logic. It has been the felt necessity of the time, the intuitions of public policy, even the prejudices that judges share with their fellow men has had more to do with creating the law than the syllogism. What was he trying to say? The felt necessities of the time. Do you feel that Build Back Better is a felt necessity? Do you feel it's necessary to build back better? Yes. Do you feel the necessity of voting rights? Yes. Do you feel the necessity of reproductive freedom for women? Yes. Do you feel the necessity of college tuition for all those children? I go beyond community college. I say for all those children who can do the work. That's what Congresswoman Alma was talking about. When we came along, if you could do the work, we were still scared of the Russians back then. And if you could do the work, somebody would pay for you to go to college. If you wanted an education, somebody would pay for you to. Jack Kennedy thought it was a national security issue, that all the children need to be educated, black children, brown children, white children, all of them. If you think education for all children who need it and want it is a necessity, what do you say? Do we want it now? Now, our job, their job across the street is to make the law, and their job behind us is to interpret the laws that are made. But we have a job in this proposition, too. Our job is to make our necessities felt. If we think that these things are important, they may not think so. They got 3 lobbyists for every one of them telling them what to do and what to vote for. They might be confused. We don't have to get confused, Mel, because we don't have an army of lobbyists telling us what to do. Right. Can you imagine 3 lobbyists for every member of Congress? Every senator's got 3 people chasing them down all day just for one client, whether it's banking or the oil industry or the utilities, giving them a prescription for what. But we, the people, have the right to say what we think is necessary. So if we think expanding Medicaid is necessary, it's our job to make that necessity felt. And how do we do that? By doing what you're doing today, raising your voices, talking to your friends and neighbors, sharing. You know, when you get through with the TikTok videos and all that, or put this on TikTok, share this video so that folk younger than us and older than us can see what the real deal is. I'm not much in an inspirational mood today. I'm ready to work today. Matter of fact, I really would like to go across the street and walk the halls of some of these office buildings and say to some folk, we might catch them on the sly and say, it's time. But Melanie, I thank you for your perseverance, for your vision, for your determination. I've been in meetings when people tried to deter Mel from doing what she thought was right. They called the devil. And all she had to do is look at you real hard one time, and you would back off from that. But at any rate, thank you, and we're going to go out and make our necessities felt.
Thank you. Thank you, my sister Janice Mathis, Powerhouse. Thank you, and NCNW. Again, our next speakers are Acacia Newsom and Joy Cheney.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am Acacia Newsom, Project Assistant for BWR and BYV. I am here today because I demand to be heard. I am here today because I demand to be seen. I am here today because of young people, young black people, young black women. We came out in record numbers in 2020 because we knew exactly what was on the line in the last election. At 24 years old, I am now faced with the same voter suppression that my grandmother was faced with when she was my age. Since the November elections, legislators in 43 states have proposed over 360 voter suppression bills. Georgia recently approved an extremely racist and suppressive bill that would severely limit the right to vote in the state. Yet I am here today willing to scream as loud as I can, willing to be the vision for those who may not have the ability to see, demanding Congress to protect our democracy by passing national voting rights legislation like John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act. Young people everywhere are calling on Congress to change this situation by passing bold legislations that protect our rights to vote, while also passing the economic bills that will protect our planet and give us dignity in the 21st century workplace. We came out in record numbers because we care about racial justice, criminal justice, environmental justice, economic justice, and social justice. We marched the streets in the middle of a pandemic because we knew the stakes were high. And guess what? They are still high. And we still will keep marching. Thank you so much.
Go ahead. All right. Black youth, what? Black youth, what? Black youth. Black youth. Vote.
All right, all right, all right. Thank you to the organizers, led by Melanie Campbell, Dr. Janetta B. Cole, and my friend here, Janice Mathis. She is absolutely right. They have a job, but we have a job to underscore what is necessary. My name is Joy Cheney, and I am the Executive Director of the Washington Bureau and Senior Vice President for Policy and Advocacy for the National Urban League. I cannot think of something more necessary, one that pulls together our full agenda at the National Urban League, than voting rights and economic justice. The National Urban League has been committed to civil rights, which includes voting rights and economic justice, for more than a century. Say it with me: voting rights equals economic justice.
Voting rights equals economic justice.
What do we want? Voting rights and economic justice. What do we want?
Voting rights and economic justice.
And when do we want it?
Now.
Economic justice, economic parity, economic empowerment, economic freedom. It is imperative that Congress use the latter weeks of this year to focus on the two things most important to the American people, the things that are necessary: democracy and their personal economy. We have been fighting for the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to undo the misinterpretations and the harm and the damage done to the Voting Rights Act by the Supreme Court. And we have been fighting for the People Act and now the Freedom to Vote Act, which will roll back and defend against the bills, the anti-democratic, anti-voter, anti-American bills that are spreading across this country. More than 40 states have introduced bills representing hundreds of bills. 33 or so of those have actually become law, which is a clear and present danger to the American voter, specifically voters of color and other underserved populations, which, by the way, is their intent. We have already seen what they're trying to do in terms of redistricting, trying to eliminate members of the Congressional Black Caucus, like my two Soror congresswomen that were on here before, trying to deny black voters one person, one vote. And when we get to the polls, trying to do everything in their power to make it more difficult to vote. It's evil. Therefore, Congress must pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and other voting rights legislation, like the Freedom to Vote Act, which is on the Senate floor this week. But we know that civil rights isn't just limited to voting rights. Oh no, that's the foundation, that's the core. But it's not limited to it. It encompasses economic justice. We elected a president and a Congress who promised to build back better. And you can't build back better unless you have access to good jobs and workforce development. You can't build back better without access to housing or opportunities for home ownership. You can't build back better without closing the digital divide or having affordable child care. Women know all too well the necessity of that. You can't build back better, not in this economy, without access to paid family and medical leave.
That's right.
All of us here today have that. We have leave. Members of Congress have that. How dare they try to deny it to the American people? And all of those things are so important. They underscore and support American families and economic security and the American dream. And for all those who are still seeking and in search of that American dream, people who are in poverty trying to move to the middle class, you can't build back better if you don't have economic security like that's afforded through the child tax credit, real dollars in people's pockets.
That's right.
Brought millions of families out of poverty. We must see that extended. You can't build back better without access to health care through Medicaid and Medicare. So this isn't about a number. We heard what the president said this week. We've heard what Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema and so many others said, and we hear them. But do they hear us?
Say that.
We didn't elect anyone in any party to pass bills that come under a certain number. That's not our goal. We elected people to build back better. What did we elect them to do?
Build back better.
That involves an investment, overdue investment in both physical and human infrastructure. It must get done. It must get done this year. It must get done now. I urge all of you in Congress to listen to us. Don't worry about those lobbyists. Listen to us.
Yes.
We need you to build back better. We need you to invest in our voting rights and our economic rights. You do that, and we'll do what you want us to do for you when the time comes. You know what I mean. Thank you.
I think what she meant was, we voted you in? Well, and we can vote you out. All right. Now we will hear from our sister Carol Joyner, Director, Labor Project for Working Families and Family Values at Work. Also paid leave for all, and we just left. Was that last week? We're over there just sending some good messages to the White House that we want to keep what in the bill. Carol, let us know what that is. Paid leave for all. And then following Carol, I was going to call you Ifoma. Ifoma is Imazu, worker leader, one fair wage.
It's a beautiful day in D.C., another beautiful day to be out raising our voices around what we need, what we want, and what we demand. Thank you, Melanie Campbell, our sister leader who always sounds the call, for acting today and bringing us together to tell the truth about the Democratic elections we held in 2022, where we saw record voting and zero fraud in the midst of a deadly pandemic, where people, women of color, all risked their lives to vote against the pandemic, to end the pandemic, to end police violence, to end the devaluation of Black lives and the use of force, to end the fossil fuel use in this country, and to end economic strife. We voted for that. You brought us together today to tell the truth about the bogus claims of fraud that have led to a nationwide attack on our voting rights. Even though courts across the nation, including the one behind me, the Supreme Court, upheld that the 2020 elections was fair with no evidence of fraud in many cases. You've brought us together to tell the truth about what is at stake if our voting rights are dismantled, taking us back to Jim Crow era voting. And be clear, the stakes are unusually high. We are on the road to prosperity. We won't go back. And these stakes are just too high. And because of this past election, America has seen better management of COVID-19 pandemic, with a significant majority of adults having more than both vaccines and some on their way to having booster shots to protect us from current and future variants. We've also seen the American Rescue Plan, which has brought relief to families all over this country, businesses, cities, and states, and highlighting that nearly 90% of the children in this country could be receiving and are receiving right now their child tax credit. A check, a policy, a plan to reduce poverty amongst children and families in this country. And while this leadership grapples in this moment with the contours of the Build Back Better proposal, simply because of the small margins in the House and the Senate, simply because some of our leaders, some of our elected officials are taking their personal interests and mistaking it for the needs of the country, simply because we are grappling with this program, We know that we have to continue to fight for housing support and Build Back Better, for the climate change proposals and Build Back Better, for the permanent tax credit system and Build Back Better, and all of the other safety net proposals. These are safety net proposals that actually stand to be the largest in our nation's history. This is the most monumental infusion of capital into our homes and our communities with a commitment toward racial and gender equity. But all of these policies, including paid family and medical leave, need to be passed, implemented, and protected over time. If our voting rights are suppressed or undermined, it calls the future of all these policies into question. As A. Philip Randolph told us, even if we can pass these laws now, we can't keep what we can't hold. He said, at the banquet table of nature, there are no reserved seats. You get what you can take, you keep what you can hold. And therefore, we won't repair our crumbling infrastructure if we can't vote. We won't cut child poverty in half and make the child tax credits permanent if we can't vote. We won't get paid family and medical leave to all families who need and deserve it if we can't vote. And we won't make corporations and billionaires pay their fair share of taxes if we can't vote. We've been brought here today to stress the importance of the passage of the For the People Act and ending the filibuster and the policies that will support our democracy so that we all can vote and address the partisanship and greed that we're living under. This is our charge. We will not wait. We will not stop until our vote is fully protected by an act of Congress. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol Joyner. And I'm going to go ahead and do the shortcut. Iffy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ifoma Izimako, and I believe our voting rights and our economic rights are closely linked. Workers have been under attack during the pandemic. It's no coincidence that our voting rights are now being affected as well. They call us essential and heroes, but pay us a sub-minimum wage and offer us the least amount of protection in the workplace. Living off of a sub-minimum wage plus tips forces working women of all ages to endure and even tolerate inappropriate customer behavior, since tips make up the bulk of our pay. Prior to the pandemic, the restaurant industry had the highest rates of sexual harassment out of any other industry, which has surprisingly even gone up, though tips have decreased 50 to 75%. How can we be fully engaged in a society where we have to fight for the most basic necessities in order to survive? This legacy of slavery must end. Both voting rights and economic rights go hand in hand. Please, Congress, I urge you to pass the federal voting rights reform. I urge you to protect workers. We, as citizens, give our all to this country. We need our voices to be heard. We need our rights to be met. Let's do the right thing, and let's pass the entire Build Back Better plan.
Let's do it.
I want to thank the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, One Fair Wage, and all of the organizations that made this possible. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to speak today, to let my voice be heard, and thank you for joining us and standing in solidarity.
All right.
Thank you.
Fair
Good
wage.
job. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And now we have another leader to come and address us today. He is Policy Advisor and National Director of Youth and College, Washington, D.C. Bureau of the National Action Network, Tyleek McMillan. Please welcome him as he comes.
Good afternoon. Now, I'm honored to be here with you all this afternoon. And special thanks to Ms. Melanie Campbell, Ms. Janice Mathis, and Dr. Barbara Skinner for their leadership As a Southern Baptist boy preacher, I say, Melanie, we've come here today with troubles. Economic justice troubles. Criminal justice reform troubles. And today we gather today outside the Supreme Court on the troubles of getting our voting rights to be protected. As Congresswoman Sewell referred to, now we have troubles, but we don't have Middle Passage troubles. We got troubles, but we don't have Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells, Susan B. Anthony's type troubles. And some of you know I got an old soul. And this moment reminds me of a spiritual song in our African American tradition, Ms. Mathis, of how we got over. Yes. It says, my soul looks back and wonders how I got over. And Dr. Skinner, we got over by the blood and sweat and tears of our sheroes and heroes, whose names we know and names we don't know. But I'm going to tell you something. We've been here before. And I know that you might be disappointed, but I want you to take comfort in these words, that we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. The valley may be low, but we've been here before. The mountain may be tall, but we've been here before. The mission for social justice and economic justice and political justice is still not finished. And you see, the mission can seem so high that it looks as if we can't get over it. And the mission seems so low that it seems that we cannot get under it. And the mission seems so wide that it seems that we can't get around it. But I come to tell you that the people that stands united cannot be divided. And as I close, I want to tell you a story that former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner once told me before. She said her grandmother was born on a farm in the South, and she asked her grandmother what it meant to be successful in life. And her grandmother told her, all you need is these 3 bones. She said the wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone. I wish somebody heard me in here. She said the wishbone will keep you hoping and praying, because hope is the motivator, but the dream is the driver. The jawbone will give you courage to speak truth to power and stand your ground in the face of adversity and opposition. And the most important bone of them all, the supercalifragilisticexpialidocious bone, is the backbone. She said the backbone, it will keep you standing through your trials and your tribulations. And guess what? You can't have a testimony without a test. And we are being tested right now. But whether or not we have the courage enough, whether or not we have the fight enough, whether or not we have the dedication enough to do what is right and to do what is necessary. And today we stand in the gap because the soul of our democracy is depending on it. And as late Congressman Elijah Cummings would say, we're fighting for generations yet unborn. And so we say the words to you, Senator. What side of history will you stand on? What will the history books say about you? No justice.
No peace.
God bless you.
All right. Amen. Thank you, Talik. You remind me, Reverend Talik, boy preachers, you know, Martin Luther King and Jesus, that's good company to be in. But you remind me of a verse that's a favorite of mine. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of sound minds. It gives me great pleasure to introduce and bring to the podium a dear friend, a sister, mentor at the National Council of Negro Women, where I'm privileged to be the executive director. She is our chaplain. We don't start any meetings without her if we can help it. Uh-oh, I've been corrected. It's Holly. Holly Holiday is coming this way. Is making her, and while she's coming, you need to know that she is the president of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, an influential, pragmatic leader who is a visionary in helping to lead this struggle for equal justice. Please join me in welcoming Holly Holiday, President, Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote.
Thank you. Well, today we're here to make it clear about 2 things. First, our vote matters. Second, representation matters. not just representation of who represents us, but our voice and being represented and what we expect to see, both on that side of the street and most especially on this side of the street.
That's right.
What we learned in 2020, more than 66% of eligible voters voted, representing a 20-year high. What also happened in 2020? We saw an expansion of the way that people had access to the polls. And the result of that was this 20-year voter turnout. Now, contrary to what you may read in some news outlets that make this a Democrat issue, the reality is that turnout increased high for everyone on both the Democrat and Republican side. So this is not a partisan issue. This is a democracy issue. And if you care about democracy, then you should care that our vote matters. And if you care about democracy, then you should care that representation matters. But what was the response to this turnout? Over 44 states, plus the District of Columbia, which should be a state, experienced this higher than voter turnout. And those same states responded by introducing legislation that would roll back those expansions in opportunities to vote. That's why we need Congress. That's why we need Congress to act today. We need to make sure that Congress stands up for us the way we stood up for you in November. We need Congress to stand up and affirm that our vote matters, that representation matters. We need Congress to send a clear message across this United States that we need to pass the Freedom to Vote Act, that we need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, that we need to pass the Build Back Better Act, that we need to make D.C. the 51st state,
All right.
that we need to pass the Infrastructure Investment and Job Acts, that we need to have a permanent plan for paid leave for all. Yeah. But let us be clear, these things start and end with us having a democracy, and a democracy begins with our vote. Our vote matters, representation matters. Congress, we expect you to act. Thank you very much.
Amen. Be careful. Thank you, Holly, for those challenging and inspiring words. And now we go to the chaplain of the National Council of Negro Women, member of our board of directors, but also the founder of the Skinner Institute. She regularly trains and mentors young folk to get them over that bridge from where they are, from childhood into adulthood and careers. Please join me in welcoming a force who has been an inspiration and influence here in the D.C. area and across the nation, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Melanie Campbell, for your steadfast leadership, and Janice Mathis for taking the National Council of Negro Women to new heights. 47 years ago, the great Texas Congresswoman Barbara Jordan reminded all of us during the impeachment trial of Richard Nixon that there is no we the people without black people, without brown people, without Asian people, without Native people, that there simply is no we the people. And she says, while you didn't have us included in we the people, we have written ourselves in by our own blood, sweat, and tears. That's what we are doing right now. We have heard what we can't do. We've heard about the 400 bills that will strip voting rights, make it almost criminal to do anything like humane, compassionate things like giving people, older people in line, water and food. We've heard that our early voting and our registration and our online and our absentee votings have been stripped in cities. In fact, in 18 of those states, 30 bills have actually passed. there is a spirit of fear that is likely to overcome our community until we as leaders tell people that they're more with us than against us. That's right. And that we have not come this far except by faith, leaning on the Lord and his everlasting word, but we also have to put our faith together with our works. And what are the works? There are 5 areas of work we must do. We can talk to the Congress, but we must also talk to ourselves. We have to, number 1, vote on our knees. We will not get anything done without the power of God against the resident evil, the cruelty that is evident in the anti-voting laws. We have to educate our people. We have to let people know that with redistricting, you may not even be going to the same polling site as you went to before. We've got over a year now. There are no excuses that every month we're not doing something in our churches and our sororities and all of the online opportunity to tell people exactly how you can vote. They didn't take away your right to vote. They made it harder to vote. But has it ever been easy for black people? No. Has it ever been easy for young people? No. Has it ever been easy for workers? No. Has it ever been easy for the poor? No, it has never been. So that's number 1. You've got to educate people and let them know that they have work to do to claim their rights. Nobody in power is going to give you your rights. You have to take it. Secondly, we've got to register people. Do you know that in 2016, there are 6 states where the margin of victory was much less than the unregistered black vote? Look at Pennsylvania, 44,000 people in Pennsylvania. That was the margin of victory. Oh, but look at the 240,000 unregistered black voters. Look at the state of Michigan. 11,000 was a margin of victory, but 227 did not even bother to register. So we have to build up in our people a desire that this is your country too. We too sing America. Yeah. This is our nation. Then 3, we have got to get the identification. I don't care if it's a gun license, if it's a cooking license, it's a make your bread license, whatever it is, go get it. And so you can vote. Then you have got to get busy on mobilizing people. Get them out of the barbershops and the beauty shop. Get them off Twitter and Facebook and tell them to come out and vote. We've got to let our people know that if they can take away, we're standing in front of this United States Supreme Court where the 64 Civil Rights Act and the 65 Civil Rights Act were affirmed by this very court. It's not an accident, Melanie, that we're here today to say we are affirming the Freedom to Vote Act will pass on our watch. Yes. It will pass, and the John Lewis bill on our watch. But we've got to mobilize people to do it. Not just Arizona and West Virginia, but all over the country. And then finally, we have got to protect the votes that's out there. Last year, we had people coming out in the gun states standing erect around with their rifles to intimidate people. I'm telling you, we have to have poll chaplain. We have to have our young and our older poll chaplain in their clergy collars with the lawyers backing them, Janice Mathis. We have work to do. We have a victory to run. We can do it. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and power and a sound mind. It's with that mind that we're ready to fight. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Dr. Barbara.
You go.
Go ahead. And I'll do our closing.
Well, now we want to thank everyone for coming out today. I see that passers-by are stopping. We're glad to see. If you didn't plan to come here today, we're glad that you're here. Because we think that when we say we too sing America, they'll send us to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But they'll look and see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. That's the way it ends, isn't it? That's the way it ends. I grew up on it too. Melanie, I want to thank you for being a sister beloved, for including NCNW in this momentous. We're partners, yeah. We're partners in this effort, and we're going to do everything we can within our power to deliver on those promises that have been made to us as citizens of this country, and they're ours to be claimed. We have a role to play. We're not going to shirk from our duty. We're not going to hand it off to somebody else and say it's somebody else's responsibility. We take responsibility not only for ourselves and our families, but God in heaven knows that if this nation is to be saved for democracy, it'll be black women who play a large part in that salvation. Not just for us, but for the whole country. Because you know what? Those provisions in those bills, that Build Back Better plan, do you know it averages something like 55–60% approval of all the American people? It's not like we're proposing something that is out of bounds or unpopular or unnecessary. These are things that most people agree. Most people want to know that when they go to the doctor, they can afford to pay the bill. Most people want to know that if they got a job, there's someplace safe to leave their child. That doesn't come in any color. That doesn't come in any gender. That's just a human aspiration. And it's in the wealthiest country the world has ever known. In the wealthiest country the world has ever known, we can afford to have basic education, basic health care, basic housing for every citizen of this country. Amen. God bless you all, and thank you. And come to, this is a whole week. This is not a day.
That's right.
From now until next week, this is how I'm celebrating my birthday this month. Is that we every day from now until the 28th, we're going to be doing something. Be on the lookout. Watch your feeds and follow us on social media. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you. So with the, I don't know if there's any questions on, anyone have any questions? No? Okay. So we're going to close out. As Janice mentioned, my sister mentioned, this is the launch of a week of action. So Black Women and Allies started today with this Speak Out on the steps of the Supreme Court. And our demand is for this U.S. Senate to do its job, to pass the Freedom to Vote Act, to pass the John Lewis Act, to pass Build Back Better, especially to make sure some things like paid family leave is in it, and to pass, yes, the infrastructure bill.
Yes.
So we say voting rights equals economic justice. Voting rights equals
economic justice.
Voting rights.
Economic justice.
Voting rights.
Economic justice.
So follow Black Women and Allies at our blackwomentake.action.org. We're going to be back on Capitol Hill on October the 28th. But in between that, we have actions going on all throughout the week. So go to blackwomentake.action.org. Thank you to all of our partners who are here and those who were not able to make it. We are going to fight, and we are going to win our voting rights and economic justice. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.